Hi everybody and welcome to Smack Talk. My name is Rich and today we are joined by a legend of the squared circle. Over his 22-year career with WWF and WWE, he's been in the ring with all of the greats: Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Rock, The Undertaker, Triple H, Hulk Hogan, Ric Flair. The list is endless. He is none other than one of the single most famous zebras in all of wrestling, the author of 3 Count, My Life in Stripes, Mr Jimmy Korderas. Sir, it's a pleasure to have you join us today. How are you doing?
I am doing well, and it's a pleasure to be here. And after an introduction like that, it's going to be hard to live up to that billing. I'll give it a shot.
I'm sure you'll be fine. After last week's interview with Alicia Ratout, I have to now. It's my thing where I have to do these amazing intros for everybody. So, but it's all justified. Like, your career really was 22 years with WWE / WWF. And you have been in the ring with absolutely everybody. It's unprecedented, really. How does that feel to you, hearing that back, like 22 years?
It's still to this day, kind of surreal, because when I think back on it, as I was both awestruck being in the ring with all these icons and legends and so forth, but at the same time, I was treated just like one of the guys. I mean, like, and in that sense, it felt more fulfilling to me that I was considered a peer as opposed to just a co-worker, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and that's the thing. Like, obviously, as a fan watching, the referee is as big a part of the match as the 2 talents that are fighting, I would suggest. And there's a lot to refereeing that people don't really realise as fans. So, I mean, obviously there's things like, crossing your arms if someone's injured, or counting the pinfalls, the ring outs and that sort of thing. But what aspects of being a ref don't come across to the average fan that's watching on TV?
Well, the biggest misconception about the ref is that he's just in there and just counting and just basically, waiting for the end of the match to do his thing. The referee helps the talent tell their story. I like to refer to it as kind of like a supporting actor. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like the talent in the ring are telling their story. You're helping them tell their story, but they are the stars. They are the main focus. You're kind of like I don't want to say background actor, because you are a little more visible than a background actor, but at the same time, you try to be as invisible as possible until you are required to be visible. But in that sense, again, your main focus is to help them tell their story, whether it's helping communicate a spot between the 2 talents where it's not easy for them to communicate with one another. Because, let's be honest, they do communicate in the ring with each other, try to get, stuff squared away, whether it's if it's TV or pay-per-view, giving times and making sure that the guys hit their times as close as possible, that guys and gals. It's a lot more involved than some may think, but at the same time, once you get comfortable in that role, it's almost everything almost like second nature, if that makes sense.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I sort of again alluded to this during the Alicia Ratout interview last time. I had a session with Andy Boy Simmons last summer in a local show, and refereed a match. Like, I'd never done it before, but he basically turned around and said, "Well, you've watched wrestling, so you'll have an idea of what goes on." And between us, we worked out a match, and I reffed it, and it was one of the most insane experiences. Like, there was all these little subtleties that you don't realise, like looking at someone's eyes during a pin cover, and if their eyes are open, they're going to kick out, and if their eyes are shut, count to 3. Like, just little things like that, little signals. And now when I watch it on TV again, I'm seeing these little things. It's like, wow, like, you never realise how involved being a referee is until you've, got the chance to do it, or to pick the brain of someone who's been doing it for a long, long time. So I have so much mad respect for yourself, and others that have refereed for a long, long time, like Hebner and those guys that just absolutely are the masters of your craft.
Well, again, that's very much appreciated. And it's not like I also want to point out that it's not like, okay, we've been doing this for 2 decades or whatever it is. We know everything. It's constantly evolving. You're constantly learning.
Sure.
You're picking up little things, and um, for example, oh, maybe if I do this a little bit differently, that would work better. And as far as evolving too, I do want to point out that one of the things when I do um, speak to young refs nowadays, I try to explain to them that even this, as much as the style of wrestling has evolved over the years,
Mm.
the style of refing I think has as well. And I point out more to look towards guys like, if you look at mixed martial arts, for example,
Right.
someone like a big John McCarthy
Mm.
or Herb Dean or somebody like that. Their motions are very limited. They're not very animated,
Yeah.
but if you watch them during an MMA fight, you can see that they are very involved. They're very focused on the action. They're paying attention. So to me, if you can incorporate some of that into wrestling refereeing, it looks more authentic.
Right. Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah, because it's as much about being a part of the match as not detracting from it, I guess. So you don't want to be running around all over the place and getting in the way, and because like you watch any sport, and especially like you mentioned MMA, you're quite right. The referees don't get in the way of the action; they try and stay out of the way of it, but also in a position where they can keep an eye on what's happening. So
Exactly.
it's quite an interesting balance as well, being sports entertainment or pro wrestling, but the WWE sense from where you made your career. Sports entertainment is that hybrid of the sport, but with the entertainment factor in. So there will be times when you take a bump or get too close to the action, so to speak, as part of the storyline.
True.
Um,
Absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, how is the direction? Like, I don't want to get the curtain back on the whole business, but when you're told you're going to take a bump in a match and it's like some insane spot where you're going to get chucked out of the ring or something you're not necessarily used to doing, like, is there a lot of training goes into that, or how do you handle that as a non-wrestler?
That's the thing. I mean, I view referee bumps maybe a little bit differently than some,
Hmm.
because my philosophy is a referee shouldn't, when the time comes for him to take a bump, it shouldn't look like he was trained to take bumps.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like if he gets clotheslined or kicked or something, he shouldn't flat back like one of the guys, because then it just looks like he's taking a bump. It should look, for lack of a better term, awkward.
Hmm.
But also the challenge is trying to make it look awkward, realistic, and not to hurt yourself too much.
Well, yeah.
That's the biggest challenge. Is not, you want to make it look as you want people to go, oh, okay, that looked like it hurt, but you
Mm.
don't want it actually. But then again, the entire wrestling business is predicated on making it look like it hurt, but a lot of the stuff hurts. So yeah.
Yeah.
So getting back to my point, it's I try to approach it in a sense, and it's something that I don't practice. It's not like you say, okay, I'm going to fall this way or fall that way. I try to like do it as natural as possible.
Sure.
But
That makes.
I tend, because if I start thinking, oh, if I go this way, maybe when he hits me here, I'll do this. I tend to overthink,
Right.
because I remember one time, this was a while back. There was a backstage pre-tape we were doing with the Legion of Doom, where they were going to beat out the Stooges, Pat Patterson and Gerald
Oh
Briscoe.
man.
So the director, the one directing the backstage segment, says to me, "Okay, you're going to run in, and Animal's going to grab you, and you know those big 5-liter jugs of plastic water bottles that they put in the fountains."
Oh yeah. Yeah.
There's a stack of empty ones over on the side, and he says, "Well, he'll just roll you, like throw you, but you'll crash into those. They'll make a lot of noise, and then no big deal." And I said, "Well, that's fine. That's cool. Whatever. They're plastic.
Yeah.
How much can they hurt?" But then just before we did the segment, Animal says to me, "Well, I don't feel comfortable with that." maybe if you come running in and I just give you a clothesline, you fall down. I said, okay, fine. And then as I thought about it, as they were beginning to shoot, I thought, well, if I go down, we're on concrete here. This isn't the ring. So now I'm starting to overthink. When he hits me, I'll spin him, and go face first down and just put my hands down to protect myself.
Right.
In doing that, my hand slid out. I hit my head on the concrete, split wide open, big puddle of blood.
Ouch.
So, and the first thing that comes to my mind, is, oh no, I ruined the shot. But the director comes over and says, "Are you okay?" I said, "Yeah, I'm fine." And he says, "Okay, just lay there. We're going to shoot it." Okay, you know what I mean. So, but you know what I mean by overthinking it. Maybe I should have just fell down normally, but I don't know.
It's hard to say. I mean,
Yeah.
you imagine if you've excuse me, I'll try it in English. If you've over rotated and hit the back of your head on the concrete instead of the front or the side, like where the skull's thinner, you might have done even more damage. So you could think it and overthink it and overthink it, and then it's. But I mean, if they got a cool shot and you're happy with it and not too badly hurt, then that's got to be a good result for everybody, right?
Yeah, it's just my wife, who was my fiance at the time. This was like about a week and a half to 2 weeks before our wedding, so she was not worried more about eye blacking and stuff like that. And we got away with it because they didn't need to stitch it. It was more like a clean cut, so they kind of the doctor there did some good gluing and patchwork to avoid
for that.
So that was good.
Yeah, right. Yeah, because there's nothing worse than an angry wife.
Well, I can think of a few things, but it's not. It ranks in the top 3. Let's put it that way.
Definitely up there. And I shall say no more about that subject from my point of view because it's safer for public consumption. But let's go back to WWF. So you joined the company was it 1987 originally?
Actually, I started working. Jack Tunney was here, the promoter here in Toronto, and the figurehead president of WWF at the time in 1985.
Okay. Right.
I started working for him, I want to say mid to late 85. I wish I knew the exact date. I should have kept records, better diaries, but I started working for him in 1985, and then I didn't start refereeing until, I want to say, just before WrestleMania 1987.
Okay.
WrestleMania 3, but at that point, there was no way I could referee a WrestleMania. I was like green as grass. So, I just started. But my referee career started in 87, but technically started working for Jack Tunney up here in Canada in 1985.
Awesome. Okay, so that gives us a bit of a time frame because obviously, if you're working for Jack, then you were there during the transitional periods of going into the golden era and everything. So, like, were there any major differences throughout those sort of transitional times where, you turn up to work one day and you're getting one set of directions and then, like, literally things change quite quickly around that time, I believe?
No, because when I joined up with Jack at the time, he had already his promotion had already been taken over by Vince.
Right. Okay.
They were already WWF at the time. I just didn't. My duties were more restricted to Canada and the northeastern United States. Like
I see. Right.
Michigan, New York State. Like not venturing too far from the border. Let's put it that way. Before 1987, when things changed and I started to travel a lot more.
Sure, because it's difficult for me to talk about that time purely and simply, and you'll have to forgive me this because I was 3. So it's like I'm kind of grabbing around on Wikipedia for as much as I can learn about yourself in WWF at that time. So perhaps it might be a better angle for me to pass it over to you and to just give us your take on obviously being around as a referee in that time period. Because obviously we've alluded to the idea that matches were very different back then and wrestling's evolved. So what would you have had as a typical day? Like you're going to TV, say, and you've got a card. How do you go about following through your sort of day as a referee?
Yeah. Well, it like I said, it changed over the years, but in the early days when I first started going down, especially for television, you show up early. It's always, pretty much an all-day thing. So you show up early, and of course, there's a little bit of catering, so you're gonna you're gonna enjoy some of that. But then, the production meetings go on, which normally we're not a part of.
Mm-hmm.
Earl would sometimes be a part of the production meeting, but not always. Like whoever the head official was,
Okay.
sometimes would join the production meetings, but not always. And then they would have the matches set up for the night. And back then, we used to tape 3 weeks worth of television because it was only a 1 hour syndicated show at the time.
Cool.
And they had actually 2 1 hour syndicated shows every week. There was Wrestling Superstars of Wrestling and
Mm-hmm.
Wrestling Challenge. So, the one night would be 3 weeks of taping Superstars of Wrestling, and then the next day would be 3 weeks of taping 3 weeks worth of Challenge.
Mm-hmm.
So it was much different then. So it was a 3 hour TV, but it wasn't live 3 hours every Monday night, which it is now. So different times. Matches were much shorter. It was generally a star versus an enhancement talent, as they call it now. Back in the day, I guess we can't use the word jobber anymore. It's not.
We can use jobber on here. It's fine.
Okay, so they were referred to as jobbers back in the day. Today they're called enhancement talent.
Mm-hmm.
And every once in a while, you would see a top star versus a mid carder, and that would be your main event every once in a while. But for the most part, it was basically, as we call them, squash matches to get the stars over. It was a different time. And for us, we were just assigned matches and just making sure that at that time the matches were so straightforward usually that our main goal was to make sure they hit their times for television.
Cool.
Yeah. Whereas as the years went on and television and the matches became a little more competitive, for lack of a better term, between talents, now that's when we started to incorporate more of what we would do during house shows, which we talked about earlier about the communication and stuff like that. But then again, at the same time, also helping guys hit their times.
Mm-hmm. That's again more that people don't really sort of take into account with the referee is like just that how much control over a match you really need to have. Like, if things go wrong or if someone gets injured, and you've got to make sure that doesn't necessarily come over on TV as a mistake, I guess. And if the match is running long or short, kind of getting the guys and the girls to carry out their match as quickly or as slowing down as they possibly can.
That's true. And also, if I can point out, not to make us sound super important, but we are, referee can make a good match feel much better. And a not so good referee can take a match and make it look really bad.
Right.
Again, it's it is also an art form, just like what the talent does. It is an art form.
Yeah, absolutely spot on. I couldn't agree with that more. And it's one that I hope is more appreciated, by the wrestling fan, because everyone talks about, who's your top 10 wrestlers, or all this sort of stuff, and the refs get left out of that. And I think it's a tragic shame that you guys don't get the recognition half the time. So,
I think
it's something that
I think slowly. No worries. Sorry to interrupt. I think slowly over time it's starting to change a little bit. Hopefully one day, not for me personally, but somebody like the WWE will recognize referees for their Hall of Fame at some point.
Well, that was theoretically that's what the Warrior Awards for, isn't it? There was Ultimate Warrior was saying like he wanted the people that make the show happen, the backstage people and the the refs and the ring crew and all that to get the recognition through his award. So perhaps that will be a case over the coming years.
Hopefully, yeah, and I agree. I remember hearing that speech from the Warrior and thinking, what a nice sentiment. And it very much makes sense. I mean, this year's recipient, not to get off track here, Sue Aitchison, that's someone that I think the Ultimate Warrior had in mind when he originally said that in his speech, because she has done much brilliant work backstage, and especially with the Make-A-Wish stuff. She's
Oh
awesome.
yeah.
If you ever get a chance to meet her, she is just tremendous, and that's the kind of person. I mean, like, um, again, it'd be nice for some referees to get recognized as well, but those people that you don't see,
Mm.
that tireless stuff, it's amazing, and I'm glad she got recognized.
Yeah, absolutely right. I mean, I remember when they announced her getting the award, and I sat there and I had a tear in my eye because I thought this is finally what Warrior wanted. Not to disrespect anybody that got that award before, because it's important to recognise them, but the fact that he, in what are now his dying words, said, "This is what I want," and to see her getting that award, and obviously she's British, she's from Wales, that rang nicely with me as well. We sat there at the Hall of Fame listening to her speech, and I was crying because I just thought, my God, that work that you've done for so many, not just for the wrestlers, but for the kids, and all those kids that she's helped. It so needs to be recognised, and things like that, and like I said, with yourselves as referees and like ring crew and all the backstage guys and girls need to get that recognition because it's just not seen, apart from in the final finished polished product on TV.
Right. It'll eventually happen someday, but yeah, there's plenty of candidates for it. That's for sure.
Sure. So let's play the hypotheticals game here then. So, Triple H or Vince call you up and they say, Mr. Korderas, Jimmy, we're going to put you in the Hall of Fame 2020. Who inducts you?
Oh my goodness. That's a good question. Over the years, it would be kind of cool because, I almost think, should it be a fellow Canadian? Because someone like Edge, who wrote the foreword for my book, would be a cool choice. If it's not a wrestler, I would think, I hate to say this, Tony Chimmel.
Good old Chimmel.
Yeah, he would maybe, because we basically rode up and down the road together forever. So, and I always used to joke that I have a sore back from carrying him for 20 years. And
Chimmel gets such a hard time, man. Like, everyone gives him so much heat, and it's like, what's the deal with that?
He's such an easy target. No, Chimmel's be around. His whole world revolves around Rodney Dangerfield jokes and stuff like that. But he's a good-hearted guy, and he's one of my best friends there. And if not, he was my road wife for, as we call it, for a long time. If not, if it's another ref, man, who do you pick? Charles would be a good pick, but Charles deserves to go in himself. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Earl would be nice, just so that maybe that fence could get mended, whatever's going on there. Their personal stuff.
Sure.
And so also Earl and Dave were guys that took me under their wing. Timmy White deserves. I don't know. That's a tough one, boy. It's a good question, and if by chance someday that happens, now I got to think about it.
Well, let's come back to it at the end. We'll give you some thought time on that one and let you percolate on it.
Okay.
Cool. So, I mean, I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up what happened 20 years ago, the tragic loss of Owen Hart. And I'm sorry to go from one extreme to the other on this, but I kind of have to, in a way. I'm not going to go down the sensationalist route, and we talked about that off air. I don't believe that's the right thing to do. I've listened to Jim Ross talk about it, and he said, people focus so much on the negatives and the tragedy and the disaster and the gruesome side of things, and it's pretty sick. And obviously, with the news that Ashley Mazzaro passed away and things like that, wrestlers die tragically young, and I don't want to focus on that at all. What I'd like to do, if you're agreeable, is talk to you about having known Owen personally and what that was like. What are your favourite memories of someone who was widely beloved, and let's celebrate his life.
Yeah. Oh, he was. I know a lot of it sounds very cliche, but he was such a good guy. He was such a good guy. Loved his family above everything else. As much as he loved the wrestling business, he loved his family much more. And he did everything he did was for them. And he's just a fun guy to be around. His ribbing was legendary. His ribbing was not malicious. Was never meant to be, like I said, malicious at all. Everything was good-natured, good-hearted ribbing. He even in the ring at times would be, actually some of the funniest moments. He made me laugh out loud a few times in the ring, and you know what I mean. It's just the way he was. So yes, it was a tragedy, but at the same time, I try to remember, like you said, I try to remember the good stuff. And there's plenty of it.
Oh yeah, I can well imagine. I mean, what are some of your sort of favorite road stories? Like, you've got to have some with Owen, like pulling his ribs and.
Oh my goodness. He I remember one time he was driving in the car. Brett tells the story. He's driving in a car, and for some reason Hakushi, I don't remember the talent name Hakushi, who didn't speak very much English, Japanese star, was riding in the back seat, and he stopped at a red light, and he had the control of the window, and he rolled it down at Hakushi's window, which was on the curbside, and somebody was standing at the bus stop there, and Owen screaming out the window asking for directions to a place, and this lady was speaking to Hakushi, who didn't know what he was saying. Little stuff like that.
Oh.
He got me one time in a hotel. I didn't realize it was him. Somebody called in my room and said that my credit card had been declined.
Right.
And they said, yes, you have to come down to the front desk and straighten this out. I said, can't we straighten this out in the morning? Nope, you have to come down right now. I go, it's 2:30. And no. So I go venturing down to the front desk. And I said, yeah, what seems to be the problem? And they were totally confused. And I said, yeah, somebody from the front desk called me and, said your credit card was declined. I said, no, everything seems to be fine. And it took a little while, but I figured it out. So I actually did get him back a little bit on that one.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we were here in Toronto, and the guys used to stay at a hotel by the airport with a 24-hour restaurant, which is one of the reasons why they stayed there. And I was eating in the restaurant with some of the guys, and I overheard we were close to where the phone was, and somebody had called down and ordered room service. And I heard him say, okay, Mr. Hart, that'll be about 20 minutes. I said, oh, great. So I kind of ventured over to where the house phones were in the hotel, and I called up his room, and I pretended I was the guy in the kitchen there, and said that the guy delivering the room service just quit. You have to come down and get your food yourself. And so I ended up getting him to come down, but anyways, so I did get him back a little bit, but I again paid for it later. So.
Oh, that's amazing. I can't imagine like the fun you guys must have had. Like, he's so renowned for his pranks and ribs and stuff, and to have known the man himself personally like that, something that we all kind of, as fans, we all dream of it. It's very rare that you get to speak to anybody. And obviously, now that Owen's no longer with us, it's stories like that keep him alive.
Yes.
And we've talked about the Hall of Fame.
Well, I have to mention this too. One of my favorite things.
Sorry, go on.
When he would him and Davy Boy together were hilarious. Davy Boy was also a notorious ribber, a little more, not vicious, but a little more involved. So let's put it that way. At times, but he would pull a rib, and every time he got blamed for it, his famous line, and please forgive my impersonation here of Davy Boy, but he would always say, "Hey, Davy Boy, why'd you do that? It wasn't me. I wasn't there. It was Owen. It wasn't me. I wasn't even there." He kept amazing. All the ribs because everybody knows Owen was a notorious ribber. But anyway, it was
nice. Oh, that's so cool. They just like the whole Hart family is just so incredible. Like we had the fortuitous opportunity to meet Brett over at WrestleCon back in April in New York.
Mhm.
You got 2 minutes to just basically get some pictures, and I Bret Hart is probably the reason I'm a wrestling fan to this day. Um, growing up on a tiny little island on the south coast of the UK, we didn't really see a lot of American wrestling. So when my family got Sky TV, the first person I saw was Bret.
Hmm.
Coming to the ring with the glasses and putting his glasses on the kid, and I was like, oh my god, I want to be that kid one day. So fast forward to I'm now 35 and stood in New York City, stood feet away from Brett, and I go over and I've got the glasses, and I didn't get him to put them on my head, unfortunately, because we didn't have time. But that just getting to thank him was such a great thing, and obviously with guys like Owen and Davey and the rest and of course Jim Neidhart now has gone as well. So guys that were a huge part of well my childhood and your career, that are no longer here, and it's quite a surreal feeling. Um, so it's nice to be able to share these sort of memories with you and hear your take on it because, as I say, as fans, we only ever see what's on TV in front of us. So it's a really
Yeah.
strange thing.
Yeah. And Brett is, I hate to say underrated because I don't know if that's the right term, but when you talk about um, greatest wrestlers of all time,
Mm,
at least the best to come out of Canada.
right.
And when he said, the best there is, or best there was, the best there ever will be, there's an argument to be made there.
Oh yeah.
Like anything else, everything is subjective, and I get that. But he's definitely in the conversation because you know, and it's not to plug the infamous what we saw just recently on the network where the lost Tom McGee match.
Hmm.
Like imagine that, and yes, I got to work a little bit with Tom McGee and watching that back kind of brought back some memories. But uh, here's a guy who made Tom McGee, and again, so no disrespect to Tom McGee,
Mm,
made him look like $1 million,
right.
made him look like this guy's going to be the future of the company. And as was pointed out in that mini documentary, they didn't realize that the guy that was going to be their money guy was the guy making the other guy look like he was going to be the money guy.
Yeah. Absolutely.
That's
And
how.
it's but this is the thing. Like you get guys throughout the course of history in wrestling where they are able to make everyone else look $1 million. And I mean, I'm sure you must have seen it 100 million times. As a ref, like you're in the ring watching two guys work and being part of that match, and seeing people, as their role is to make the other wrestler look good. We talked about enhancement talents, things like that. But when you're at a level like a Bret Hart, or if you look to more recent rosters, so like a Dolph Ziggler or a even a Shawn Michaels or anybody of that sort of caliber, where their technical wrestling is phenomenal and they are making the other wrestler look great. Do you feel there's a point you get to where you're almost too good to be recognized?
I I don't know if it's too good to be recognized or just oh man, I don't know how to verbalize this. It's
Mm,
almost I think sometimes it's so effortless for some of these guys, like you mentioned a Dolph Ziggler too, as well in
mm,
that conversation, that it comes so naturally to them and so easy to them that that's what gets overlooked
mm.
because it is so easy for them. So uh, it almost translates to again the other guy looks so much better
Yeah,
that you forget it's actually the other person making them look so good because it's so effortless for them. If
right.
that
Hmm.
if I'm making sense, it
Yeah,
just
absolutely.
it again you don't see that as often anymore as you used to back in the day because there were a bunch of good hands back in the day that like especially in the territorial days of
Mhm.
wrestling, every territory had their good workers that would the make the stars look like stars because
Mm,
a lot of times the stars weren't technically as good, but they had that charisma, they had that money drawing ability, and sometimes, that trumps, unfortunately, um, technical ability, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Like, you look at today's wrestling, and a lot of fans wonder, oh, this guy's so good, how come he's not a top guy? And this guy's fantastic, and how come he's not a top guy? Because sometimes being good doesn't translate to drawing money.
Yeah, absolutely right. I always liken it to like a football league or a soccer league, where for every Manchester United or Chelsea or Manchester City, there's you know a lower end team, like a Portsmouth or a whoever,
Mhm.
and for every Bret Hart, for every Shawn Michaels, for every Undertaker, there's got to be an enhancement talent. Someone's got to lose. Like, you can't always have everybody win and everybody goes over and everybody's a main eventer, because it just doesn't work that way.
Right. No,
So,
absolutely. Yeah.
mm,
In this, and even in sports, like in football and in other sports, there are backstories to everything too, as well.
mhm.
So you have to tell that story as well. It's just that in wrestling, it's more prominent, it's more theatrical than other sports.
Sure. I mean, what is your take on that whole sports entertainment versus pro wrestling side of the business? Because you know there's a very very much a divided fan base between those who like the WWE style and those who think I'd rather have more like a Ring of Honor style. And I mean, you've refed in both companies, so what's your view on that?
I think I think it's, again, not to sound like a fence sitter. I don't have an issue with it being called sports entertainment. Uh, of course, back in the day, I would say, no, no, this is pro wrestling. This is not sports entertainment. But then again, every sport is entertainment because, again, you have to appeal to a fan base. If you don't appeal to the fans and you don't draw fans in and you don't make money, there will be no sport.
Right.
So the sport has to be entertaining at the same time. They're in, uh, Bully Ray or Bubba Ray says it best. Wrestling is, you're in the storytelling business.
Right.
That's what draws money. You can have the greatest 5-star matches in the world, but that doesn't necessarily translate to people. See, especially in today's day and age, I mean, like, you have to try and attract a broader audience as opposed to just the diehard fans. And
Mhm.
God bless the diehard fans, because without them, you don't get off the ground. But it's not just about them. They have to
Mhm.
realize that in order for this business to thrive, not to survive, but to thrive and
Yeah.
grow, they need to appeal to a more casual audience, a broader audience, and give them something to appeal to. And to them, it's more the entertainment approach.
Mm.
They need characters to get invested in. They need storylines to get invested in, as opposed to just great in-ring action. For me, like being a wrestling fan, a diehard fan, I like all forms of it. And you can complain about the WWE style, or diehard WWE fans will say the Ring of Honor / New Japan style, that's too much. There's not enough selling. Everybody, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, I get you.
too, too high spot oriented, whatever you want to label it. That's, and again, not saying it because it's kind of like where I come from, but I
Mm.
think that's why NXT is so successful now, is because they've been able to blend both brilliantly, in my opinion.
Mm.
They've been
Yeah.
able to kind of mesh the sports entertainment with that ROH / New Japan style, um, like almost like a hybrid of both.
Yeah.
And they present it in a 1 hour package every week, as opposed to 3 hours or 2 hours, which, I hate to say it, it feels like a lot, maybe a little
Yeah.
too for everybody to take in.
And that is interesting that you say it, because, as I say, from a fan's perspective, on the outside, it's definitely feels like too much, and you end up everything feels so disjointed. Like, one week, Bray Wyatt is doing his fun house, and it's going one direction, and then it feels, because how many writers? There's I think there was an article that said there was something like 29 writers or something that were involved in Monday Night Raw.
Mm.
And they're all pulling in different directions, and it's like, well, that's not working. Let's do this, and then it changes, and the next week he could be dressed in like an elf costume or something, and then, oh well, that's not working. Let's try, and it just nothing seems to get carried through to its completion, and anything that gets popular on its own and organically, they seem to pounce on it and oversaturate it. And it's like, just let it grow on its own. And as you said, that's what NXT does so well, is they've hybridized the sports entertainment / pro wrestling styles, allowed the talents to explore their own abilities and their own personalities, and they come through organically. So then you just see them growing and growing and growing, and you get invested in them because you want them to do well and want to see them get called up to the main roster. And then they do, and then they become the Viking experience, and then the next week the Viking Raiders, and the next week. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I absolutely get that take, and I think that's part of the problem is on the main roster is, for lack of a better term, there's so many different voices and so
Yeah.
much input coming from different directions, and sometimes it's hard when you get one particular vision and somebody says, "Hey, let's try this," and you go for it, and if it doesn't resonate right away, all of a sudden, okay, that didn't work. Well, again, like you said, like you brought up, sometimes you just got to let things marinate. It's got to, give it some time. Like this whole Firefly Funhouse with Bray
Yeah.
Wyatt, it was the way it started off. I said, okay, this is good. This can go somewhere. Give it
Yeah.
time to mature. Give it time to go. So I think they pulled the trigger a little too early on the reveal.
Oh, I completely agree. Completely agree with that. Yep, spot on.
But it's almost like reflection of society today. There's no patience with anybody
Yeah.
reading anything.
Well,
Uh,
the
I
first
look.
week. Sorry, go on.
No, I look back to to make an analogy. I look back to movies, like for example, this the recent Marvel
Oh
Avengers
yeah.
movie. Everybody is dying to get the spoilers out there. Why?
Yeah. Oh, I know.
Yeah,
This.
yeah.
It's just mind blowing. Like that first week that the Firefly Funhouse aired, and it was so drastically different to everything that was going on. I was like you, I was hooked. I thought, oh, man, this is the greatest thing. Like, this is going to be so good. And fans were burying it. Like, they were all over it, going, oh, this is stupid. They're ruining Bray Wyatt. What are they doing? Like, blah, blah, blah. WWE's out of touch. Vince is mad. Like, all of this stuff. Look, it's been a week. Like, he's literally had a 2-minute promo, and you haven't even seen half of what's coming. And, I don't know anything of what's coming because I'm just like them. I'm watching on TV. So, of course, weeks are going by, it's building. I'm like, oh man, this could go. Like, he started hinting at things, and I thought, this could go on for months. Like, they got so much potential with this. And, like, I agree with you. They rushed to reveal it. Like, they was like, oh, let's just get this done with. And they panicked and pulled the trigger on the reveal. And it's like, well, that was underwhelming because I thought we were going to get some serious build and backstory on this, but apparently not. I mean, we might still. Who knows?
It's easy for me to what do I call it? Armchair book.
Right. Oh, everyone does.
But why not save the big reveal for when it's actually time for his first match, whenever that is? I can't wait till you guys see me in the ring or something like. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Anyway, I digress. Again, I think, like you said, there are several factors involved. Obviously, the ratings dipping lately are playing a part, and I don't want to say, I don't think they're in panic mode, but they are aware of the situation, and maybe, like you said, rushing into things before due date, if you know what I mean.
Oh, I totally do. I mean, how I'd have, just not to harp on about this for too long, but how I'd have booked the Bray Wyatt Funhouse thing was I wouldn't have had him wrestle for best part of a year. And that's not to detract from his wrestling ability. It's because what I felt would have been amazing was have him sort of playing on that creepy side and like stealing things out of people's bags. Like, just totally isolated incidents where, say, I don't know, Lana, for example, goes to her gear bag and she's like, Rusev, did you take my jacket? And he's like, no, why would I take your jacket? It won't fit me, haha, sort of thing. Like, and then she's sort of really confused by it. and then the next week or like 2 weeks later, you see it hanging up in the doorway of the funhouse,
Yeah,
and just stuff like that, right? Where he's just screwing with the entire roster.
but that would be great, but not, and have him not point it out and let fans
Yeah,
discover that on their own. Over
exactly.
there,
Right?
you, yeah.
You get months out of that. Like,
Oh,
and
he's
eventually he starts doing that to Seth Rollins or somebody. Like maybe he takes the title belt and then he's got it in the funhouse, and that's when you reveal the gimmick.
right.
You know,
Yeah,
just
and
like,
have that face with that mask and everything. And Seth, you want your belt? Come and get it.
yeah.
You know.
And this is the thing, you get one shot at that, right? When you're booking a storyline. So I don't know. I love it, and I'm a massive fan of Bray Wyatt, and I really want to see him do some amazing things because I felt like he was so sold short in his first run. So it'd be interesting to see what he does with this.
Exactly. Exactly.
So obviously we've covered a lot of ground with other talent and other people, but I want to come back to more to yourself and your experiences. So we mentioned Undertaker, and obviously there's the comparisons drawn between Bray and Undertaker as well with their dark gimmicks. Now, Undertaker's notorious for presiding over the wrestler's court. Was there ever a time that you've been brought before the court in any capacity?
Fortunately, no. I
Ah,
Yeah, I've never been brought to wrestler's court, but I have been in attendance for a few, and it is more fun than people. Yeah, I mean, like people tend to think it's, oh, this is this crazy kangaroo court. It is, but it's meant to be fun, and
right.
really happened on the road, and just it's more to entertain the boys than anything else. That's what it was, and also, at times, teach some some younger people, um, for lack of a better term, you know how things are done.
Yeah.
Etiquette. There's certain etiquette. I mean, but again, it was more in fun than anything. I mean, like some of it, like let me put it this way: Undertaker's the judge,
Yeah.
JBL is the prosecuting attorney, and then somebody like a Booker T will be the defense attorney or something like that. You know what I mean? So,
Sure.
it, man, funny. It's all in fun.
It just sounds incredible. Like as again from the outside, you sort of look at it and go, God, they have like a wrestler's court, and Undertaker's the judge, and that's terrifying in and of itself. And then you bring JBL into the mix, and it's, God, this is just like poor sod that gets in front of that is never going to stand a chance.
Oh, of course not. He's not meant to stand a chance.
No. So you said you were there present for a few trials. What sort of thing did you see?
Oh, I'm trying to think back. See, that's the thing for me. I would attend more just for the entertainment value, and it didn't matter what the actual quote unquote offense was. It was just more to be there and be entertained.
Right.
I'm trying to remember. I remember one time, I forget who was on trial. It was in Australia. We were in Australia of all places, and everybody was in court that day, attending, and it just, man, I wish I could get, if my memory would work a lot better. I forget who was on trial, but it was I just remember because it got interrupted because Larry, our athletic trainer,
Mm-hmm.
was sent out to bring refreshments for the court, and on his way in got tripped and dropped in a whole tray of shooters and kind of broke up the proceedings a little bit, but actually was quite hilarious. So, anyways, I digress.
Presumably Larry ended up on trial as well.
No, he made restitution, so it was all good.
Oh, good. Oh, that's awesome. Um, yeah, as I say, from an outside perspective, it's so bizarre. Like, and there's so much goes on backstage that we just don't even know about, and really probably shouldn't know about. Like, it's the whole Wizard of Oz thing, isn't it? When you see behind the curtain, it's like the little guy there pulling levers. And I think that's what makes wrestling so endearing and enduring as well, is the fact that you don't know everything that's behind the curtain. And I often feel like it's ashamed to ask some of these questions just because I don't want to pull the curtain back on something that, it's like when you find out the Muppets aren't real, you know.
No, exactly. I think, and I hate to do this, but I think that's part of the problem today with a lot of the diehard fans is they've now become so much more informed
Mm,
on, on some of the stuff that goes on, and they have taken this knowledge and for lack of a better term, assume that they know more than they actually do.
yeah,
So, and and they've forgotten in some respects how to be a fan. Like
yeah.
like for example, like I do a show here in Canada where we review the WWE programming.
Right.
So I can, but I'm in my mind I have a switch. I can go
Hmm.
from okay I'm critiquing to okay I'm going to sit back and watch as a fan. I can do both, and it's kind of like
Hmm.
when I watch other products, when I watch ROH, when I watch New Japan, when I watch MLW, whoever it may be. I don't have to watch it from an analytical point of view. I could just sit back and just say, "Hey, entertain me."
Yeah.
And I think sometimes fans forget that that's what it is. You're supposed to sit back and be entertained, as opposed to just trying to overanalyze everything.
Oh yeah. It's. I mean, as I said, we were in New York for WrestleMania and Raw and everything, and it was my first time in America. It was my first time at a WrestleMania and at any WWE show. And the Monday Night Raw after WrestleMania was so much fun. Like we just had a blast, and we sat there just being entertained and loving every second of it. And it did not feel like 3 hours. And then
Mm-hmm.
when you sort of get back to the place you're staying and you go online and read Twitter and everything, and people were just like, "Oh, it's the worst Raw after Mania ever," and it was the crowd weren't into it and blah blah. Like you weren't there. Like I mean, they actually edited a lot of the audio, some of the chanting, but it was a great show and people were really satisfied. Like Mania was excellent. All the results went kind of how fans wanted them to go, and it was people got sent home happy, and I think that's the first time in a long time I've known that happen because generally speaking, the feeling is like, oh, that let us down and that let us down. But there was nothing over the course of that weekend other than probably the run in during the Seth versus Kofi match that really let anybody down. Like, I thought it was a fantastic weekend of WWE entertainment and wrestling.
I thought so too. I thought the other than the fact that WrestleMania was very long,
Yeah, oh
you know,
yeah.
I feel bad for the ladies at the end because they're going into the ring at midnight. That's kind of takes away a little bit from them. But other than that, I thought the presentation was fine.
Hmm.
And again, just I guess long. And I don't know if the expectations now for the Monday after Raw have risen to heights that people are over expecting things.
Mm,
Because
yeah.
I remember a few years ago when Dolph Ziggler cashed in on that Monday night after Raw on Alberto
Mm.
Del Rio, the place going nuts,
Oh yeah.
stuff like that. So people have these things in their mind, so they think that okay, now I got to see what's going to happen next. But maybe it's just over expectation instead of just again sitting back and okay, let's see what happens.
Yeah. I think it was I think it was a real good balance, and Undertaker turning up on SmackDown was just mad. Was it
Oh,
SmackDown or Raw? Sorry,
um,
I can't remember. I think it was Raw actually. Come to think of it,
I'm sure somebody will correct us.
yeah. I'll probably end up correcting myself, like putting it in as like a little fact box or something. Um, Either way, like him turning up was just mind blowing, and the way they did it as well was so good. With Elias going, the next person to interrupt me is a dead man, and the whole place, the intake of breath. I'm surprised any of us were able to get any oxygen afterwards. It was just amazing. And then there was this pause, like this, what they would describe as a pregnant pause, and then bong, and the whole place goes nuts. And then the weirdest thing, so you've got like the second pop, and then there's this delay again, and you're thinking, is he going to come out? Like everyone's sort of like, no, this is a prank. Surely he's not. And then he appears, and the place, like the roof lifts off. I've never known a triple pop before. Like it
Oh,
was so surreal.
It's amazing because there is that element out there, like who complain, why do they keep bringing back guys like Undertaker and old cool guys like that? But you were there, you witnessed why.
Yeah, exactly that. And I have never had a problem with any legend or any star of the past coming back, because they're the reason we're all here. You know, this is why we have this conversation, why we're doing what we do, is the fact that these guys paved the way, and yourself included in that, you know, paving the way for us currently to be enjoying wrestling. You know, there's a reason why AEW have just signed Earl Hebner. You know,
Mhm. Yeah, he's a
like,
legend.
yeah, it's incredible. So I always argue with people that knock that, because I think, well, you know, when you were a kid, if someone had turned around and gone, your favorite celebrity is going to turn up at this event, and you're like, yeah, whatever, and they turn up, you're going to go crazy,
Hmm.
right? And
Yeah.
that memory will carry you forward, so that then when you have children, they'll be fans, because you'll be like, oh, we had such a great time when I was your age, and da 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 da, da, and
Hmm.
just that's what keeps it going. And like you said, fans, or sorry, diehard fans, some of them have forgotten how to just relax and enjoy it. You know?
I think so. I think so.
Yeah,
Not just wrestling fans. I think sometimes even like I made the reference to the superhero movies
yeah,
earlier. I think sometimes with them too as well.
yeah.
Like they're the ones that complain that that story didn't go quite like it did in the comic books.
Oh,
In books, and I'm like,
mm,
come on, wrestling's the same way. Creative liberties. Let's
yeah.
guys. Yeah.
And don't you think as well, those same fans that complain it didn't go the way of the comic books, if they'd watched it and it had gone exactly how it went in the comic books, they'd been going, well, I knew that was all going to happen because it was the same as in the comic books.
There you go. See,
You're not going to please them, right?
exactly. And especially nowadays you get the both complaints, just like you said. You'll get fans who say, well, that was predictable, I saw that coming. Well, sometimes it's
Yeah.
supposed to, and then sometimes you're supposed to get a curveball.
And if you're constantly throwing curveballs, the batter expects it. So you got to throw some straight ones and some sliders in there as well. So, you
Good
know,
analogy. I like that.
I like a bit of sports, especially American sports, and hockey's my thing. So we're going to get on really well.
We're going to be buddies now.
Yes, yeah, yeah. Oh man. So I'm just gonna. Obviously, I realise we're going on a while here, and you've got a busy schedule. So I'm gonna just round this off. But I have to ask you about. There was a video I saw while I was doing my research from Smash Wrestling in 2017, and you dished out a stunner and a referee's elbow. What on earth led up to that? Because that was so weird.
Oh my
So
goodness.
cool.
Well, the good boys at Smash Wrestling, they're good friends of mine, and I refereed a few matches for them, which
Hmm.
is cool. I enjoyed it. I actually had my one and only wrestling match with them.
Right.
I want to say, if I can remember the year, was it 20? I want to say 2014, but I could be wrong. But that's where it came from. It's in that match. It was basically I did. I want to say it was Tyson Dukes, who is a very very good, very popular wrestler here in Ontario.
Hmm.
I gave him a stunner one time, as just a little bit of a ha spot that we did at a show one time, and then everybody popped, and then I said, okay. When I had this match, I said, well, maybe I could do some kind of takeoff on the Rock thing, because my whole shtick in that match was I was ripping off, you know, WWE famous WWE guys' moves because I'm a referee wrestler.
Sure.
So I did a bunch of stuff, including like the Godfather's train thing in the corner, and just a whole bunch of stuff. And then at the end, I figured, hey, maybe I could do like the Rock's elbow, but call it the referee's elbow.
So good.
So I did it in the match, and then this match I was refereeing, they wanted to bring it back out. They said, can we do one more? And I said, yeah, why not? Let's have fun. So again, that's all it was. It was just more fun, and those guys are really good. They put on a pretty good product. They're
Yeah. I loved it.
on the Fight
Oh,
Network. Really good.
I mean, as I say, when I was watching this video of you, dishing out a stunner and a ref's elbow, it's the moment where he's Vega, I think someone Vega, I can't think of the name off the top of my head, but he's laid out on the mat to receive the referee's elbow, and you go to do the armband spot, but there's no armband, so you pull one out of your pocket and put it on. And I just thought it was the greatest little thing. It's such a nice little touch. And then,
again, just having.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry to cut you off there. I didn't mean to.
Oh no, you're okay. The sound, I think the sound went a bit funny, but yeah, such a good spot, and credit to yourself for doing those, because it's so much fun, as you said, and that's what wrestling should be, is fun and enjoyable. And there's a place for the dark stuff and a place for the the edgy product, but at the same time, if you're not having fun, what's the point?
That's what I say, because wrestling is like a variety show. You have to have a little bit of everything. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
A little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of dark, a little bit of yeah. The phone's ringing in the background here.
Oh god. That'd be another booking. They want you to go and dish out more referees' elbows.
Yeah, they're hearing us right now, so they're saying, "Hey, I got to get a referee's elbow."
Oh man. Well, since the phone's going and everything, I should probably wrap this up. So I always like to finish these podcasts on a positive. So is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out or mention to that doesn't normally get one?
Oh, real? Oh, that's nice. Who gets it? You know what? I want to shout out. We already did the Smash Wrestling guys. Like I said, they're good guys. They put on a good product. They're local here in Ontario, but they're trying to expand a little bit, which is really good. Cool. What else? My partner on Aftermath TV, which is a show that airs in Canada on Tuesday nights right before SmackDown on Sportsnet 360. My good buddy there, Anthony Corelli, formerly known as Santino Corella.
Good guy. Good guy.
Really good guy. He's got his own school out there, and just on the outskirts of Toronto there, and he's starting his own promotion soon.
Awesome. Oh, I'm pleased to hear that.
Yeah, so Battle Arts Pro Wrestling. So
nice.
That's going to be interesting to see. I wish him well.
Absolutely.
And one thing I want to clear up with a lot of people who kind of have a misconception, because they figure out, they label me as the WWE guy, because that's my entire career. I want to wish the new promotion that's coming out, AEW, well.
Awesome.
I hope, I want everybody to succeed. And
yes,
I want people to stop thinking of this as us versus them. Us versus us.
Yeah. Everybody
should be all in this together, because the more they succeed, the more the business succeeds, and everybody gets to grow, and everybody gets, if you know what you're doing with this, instead of saying, screw these guys and stuff like that, let's hope everybody does well.
Yeah. Oh, I couldn't agree more. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing, I used to run a music store, and it was always the contention that, how do you get on when like there's competition, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, well, there's only competition if you let there be. If you both try and do well and cooperate, the world, both of you benefit. Like, yeah. I mean, God, can you imagine, like, if back in the day when it was WWF, WCW, if there'd been that cross-branded, like, matches between talents off both rosters, and kind of like, two separate companies but sharing talent, and just how nuts that would have been. Like, and if it was done right behind the scenes, like when the Outsiders crossed over and everyone thought, wait, they're WWF guys, the buzz that generated, imagine that happens today, and it'd just be insane. Like, if we all work together on this, and we're all, all fans and talent and everybody, if we're all pulling in the same direction, like you said, the whole business grows and we all benefit. So yeah. I just wish the fans weren't as divided as they were, like us versus them. That's all. Let everybody try to enjoy everybody if you can. That's my take. And like I said, in the WCW days, if they weren't so, in my opinion, this is again my opinion, if they weren't so concerned with being direct competition with the WWF at the time, and just said, you know what, they're on Monday nights, we're going to do Tuesday nights. Doing it the same night. I made it fun, but at the same time, it's like, come on, guys, eventually there's only going to be room for one. You know what I mean? So in my opinion, for AEW, not that I would ever tell Tony Khan how to run a business. The guy's a big, right. But in my opinion, if he would concentrate on just focusing on his product instead of trying to be
in direct competition with WWE. And I think a smart move for him would be to go to Tuesday nights when SmackDown moves to Fridays, because fans are programmed for Tuesday nights now.
Yeah.
So that's just my opinion. You know.
Yeah. I mean, whatever happens, it's going to be exciting, and it really is exciting times for wrestling as a whole. So, you know, as fans, we're salivating for this, so it's going to be awesome. But
it's going to be fun.
Hey,
and I got to give. I know he already gave himself credit, but you got to credit Chris Jericho too. He had a lot to do with it. As much as the Bucks and Kenny and all those guys are very successful and you know are going to be must-see TV, you got to give credit to Jericho.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, good Canadian boy.
I gotta give a shout out to my good Canadian boys.
Yeah, and we got to shout out Edge, who's going to induct you into the Hall of Fame, unless you've come up with someone different.
True. And I've been thinking, and I can't think of anybody better than that.
Well, there's no one better than the Rated R superstar himself, is there? So
exactly, definitely not Christian. I mean, oh, never mind. I'm just kidding.
Oh, now see, we in the Gaijin Club, we've been saying he's a shoo-in for Hall of Fame next year.
Oh, Christian's kind of like what's the word I'm looking for? He's kind of like the guy that gets all the flack, but
the Tony Chimmel. Is the Tony Chimmel of maybe?
Yeah, exactly. Like Edge superstar, Christian is the underrated superstar.
Yeah. Oh, I like that. Cool. So let's let the fans know, where can they find you on social media if you'd like them to come and find you.
Yeah, if they like, they can find me on Twitter at Jimmy Korderas, or on Instagram. I post stuff weekly. What is it? Real Jimmy Korderas. I have a Facebook page, former WWE referee Jimmy Korderas. And if you're in Canada and you're able to access Sportsnet 360, we do Aftermath on Tuesday nights at 7:30, right before SmackDown airs here in Canada, with myself, our host Caroline Sved, Nug Nargang, and again Anthony Corelli, aka Santino Morella. And if you happen to, as we mentioned earlier, my book, The 3 Count: My Life in Stripes as a WWE Referee, is probably still available on Amazon if you look for it.
It is. It's on sale at the moment as well, so it's never been a better time to pick it up.
And one last thing, if I can, is since it's coming on June 15th here in Kingston, Ontario, Canada, there is a Legends convention happening with some WWE Hall of Famers, including Mark Henry. Who else is going to be there? Billy Gunn is going to be there. Tommy Dreamer, Arn and Tully are going to be there.
Nice.
There's going to be, it's a combination House of Hardcore show that night with Chinlock Wrestling, which means Tommy Dreamer will be there.
Oh my God, I need to book flights right now. Like, that's insane.
The main event is actually Willie Mack versus Sami Callihan, with a special guest referee, which will be myself.
Wow. Okay, no, I need to be there for that. And when was that show again?
It is June 15th in Kingston, Ontario, Canada. And it's going to be a lot of fun. It's an all-day thing. Oh, yes, how can I forget? The legend himself, Bret Hart, will be there as well. Jimmy Hart. God. Yeah, it's stacked.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Oh, if there's a way I can get across the pond to that, I'm so going to be there. That sounds amazing.
Awesome, definitely.
Cool. Well, just remains to say thank you again so much, Jimmy Korderas, for your time today, and all your insight into your 22-year plus career in wrestling as a referee. Just really, really appreciative of that. So thank you very much.
Oh, my pleasure. Anytime, Rich. I enjoyed it very much.
Cool. We'll definitely do this again. There's so much more we can talk about.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. So, as I always say, don't forget you can follow us on Twitter at smacktalk_UK, as well as on Instagram and Facebook. Links to all our social media can be found at smacktalk.co.uk, where you can buy our exclusively designed wrestling merch, designed by my fair hand, of course. Anything you do buy helps us continue producing unique and diverse content, so please like and share this video, as well as subscribing to our channel, as there's plenty more to come. Thank you again, and we'll see you on the next one.